You are now listening to The Survivors Series with Kyle Fields, a One Love Media production.
Love Has No Room for Hate, Part 2.
We've witnessed the darkness, the hate, and the barriers that have tried to keep us divided. But progress is possible. We've seen it in our history, and we see it today. While the struggle does continue, there are names, movements, and moments in history that have changed the course of America forever. Let's start by paying homage to the ones who didn't back down, who fought like hell for change with unwavering courage. When we think of those names, we think of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his dream of equality. But what people don't always recognize is how King's vision didn't just shape the civil rights movement. It shaped the very fabric of what America could become. So, in 1963, King's "I Have a Dream" speech galvanized millions. It also drew attention to the deep-seated systemic racism that had been in place for centuries. But King wasn't alone. Rosa Parks, John Lewis, and the countless other unnamed heroes who sat at lunch counters, who marched in the streets, who faced brutality with only hope and the desire for justice. They too were forces that changed history. But we can't overlook the impact of leaders like Malcolm X. His journey from radicalism to a more inclusive approach was pivotal in shifting the narrative on race. He said it clearly: Black people had the right to fight for equality by any means necessary. While his methods were at odds with King's at times, both shared the same goal: true equality. But progress didn't stop there. The Black Panther Party's influence can't be overstated. While many remember the Black Panthers for their militancy, their message was one of empowerment for all. Let me say that again. The Black Panther was most known for their message of empowerment for all. Their rallying cry of Black Power wasn't just a fight for Black lives. It was a call to all oppressed people, no matter their race or background. The Panthers could often be heard shouting, "All power to all the people," meaning every marginalized voice, every voiceless person had the power to change the wrongs in society. Their revolutionary programs like free breakfast for children and health clinics demonstrated that they were fighting not just for Black people, but for all communities in need. So while we talk about the civil rights movement, we must also recognize that its legacy is not a single moment in time. It's been a continuous fight. And as we look forward, we must remember that the work is far from over. If we're going to talk about change, we can't leave out the grassroots movements that have continued to push the envelope for equality. These aren't always names we see in history books, but these movements have made a tremendous impact. The Black Lives Matter movement was founded in 2013, and it was a direct response to the injustices facing Black Americans at the hand of law enforcement. It gave a voice to those who felt unheard, standing up not just for the victims of police brutality, but for an entire community tired of living in fear. And while we're naming those who have helped carry this fight forward, we must acknowledge the powerhouses of today's movement. People like Tamika Mallory, who helped co-found the Women's March and continues to lead with a fiery conviction, or Patrisse Cullors, Alicia Garza, or Opal Tometi. 3 Black women, 2 of whom are queer, who started the Black Lives Matter movement, not just as a hashtag, but as a rallying cry heard around the world. And we cannot talk about progress without honoring the Black trans women and the Black lesbians who have been at the heart of nearly every civil and human rights movement in modern history. They've marched, organized, fought, and bled for change, often without headlines or history books giving them their due. But their impact? Undeniable. They are the blueprint. But as we all know, activism is not limited to today. It's been ongoing for generations. From the first sit-ins in the 1960s to the 1992 Los Angeles riots sparked by the Rodney King verdict, people have been standing up, resisting the systems that perpetuate oppression. And while we focus on Black Lives Matter, it's important to remember that the Black Panther Party, too, was a grassroots movement with a vision that extended beyond race. They built community-based programs to address inequality, from education to healthcare. They weren't just fighting against police brutality. They were fighting for systemic change across all facets of society. Their message was clear: all power to all the people. Now, white people, that is not the same as all lives matter. Let's get that clear. All power to all the people means all the people who do not have a voice to stand up for themselves. The rise of activists like Colin Kaepernick, who took a knee during the national anthem to protest police violence, shows that activism is still alive and doing well. It's inspiring a new generation to speak out, to challenge authority, and to fight for justice. Every protest, every rally, every call to action is a reminder that we cannot be complacent. We must continue to support these movements, amplify their voices, and stand beside them until equality is achieved for all. Real equality. Now, this is the part of the show that I don't necessarily like, because we are trying to keep it focused and centered on the survivors, the activists, and the people who are making a change. But unfortunately, in order to talk about them, we now have to face the uncomfortable truth that there are still forces in this country that are actively fighting against progress. These are the extremists, the white nationalist groups, the neo-Nazis, and the godforsaken KKK. These hate groups have been active for decades. And while we've seen the power of movements like BLM, these groups continue to spread their poison. They still try to infect the minds of others with their racist ideologies. And unfortunately, we can't ignore them. But while these groups still have a presence, they're no longer as powerful as they once were. The rise of social media has allowed them to connect, but it's also allowed us to see them for who they truly are. And we won't be silent. We're not going to allow their hate to flourish unchecked. In the 21st century, there's more awareness than ever before about the dangers of these groups. The FBI, for example, has classified domestic terrorism from white nationalists as a top priority. Law enforcement is finally beginning to understand the true threat posed by these groups. But the work is still ongoing. So, while we can't forget about these extremists, we can't let them define us either. We must continue to fight back, speak out, and stand up for what's right. Let's talk about the ones who have the power to make change. Our politicians. The ones who promise us a better future, yet too often fail to deliver. Throughout history, politicians have had a major role in shaping race relations. Some have fought for equality while others have perpetuated systems of oppression. But there are a few that stand out. Figures like Lyndon B. Johnson. Now, before I get into this amazing man, I want to say that all of my scripts are written by Mary. And I say that to say this. Once I do my research on a topic and I send her over my outline, she sits down, she writes the script. The episode script is then converted to a file that I drag and drop to my teleprompter, and I never add to her scripts because she's an amazing writer. But when I opened the script and saw this part about LBJ, I had to make an edit that she might fight me for. But it was to add in her message where she fangirls over this man, and I felt it deserved to be on the episode. So, this is what she said. LBJ is such a complicated and fascinating figure. Man was a loud, crude Southern bulldog with a history of racist beliefs, but when it came time to lead, he signed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act like a damn warrior. He weaponized his power to get it done too. Twisted arms, made backdoor deals, and pushed that legislation through because he knew it was the right thing to do, even if it wasn't politically convenient. And that quote, "We shall overcome," that wasn't just a line. That was LBJ breaking with centuries of Southern tradition to say, racism can't live here anymore. And if you've never seen the movie LBJ, played by Woody Harrelson, you need to. It's an amazing movie, and it does such a good job showing who he was and who he transformed into after Kennedy's assassination. But it's important to recognize that LBJ's transformation wasn't easy and it wasn't immediate. But he made a decisive choice to prioritize the needs of the American people over his own political career. And in doing so, he helped change the course of history. We've also seen the Kennedys take a stand on race. With John F. Kennedy's push for civil rights and his attempt to challenge segregation, and Robert Kennedy's support for Martin Luther King Jr. as an advocate for justice and peace. And who can forget good old Barry Obama? President Barack Obama's election in 2008 was another turning point for America. His victory was not just a personal achievement, it was a victory for a country that had been divided by race for far too long. Obama's presidency proved that change is possible. But as we all know, there is still so much work to be done. So while some politicians have fought for equality, others have blocked progress, stoking division, and failing to hold themselves accountable. But we must continue to push them to do better. We must hold them accountable to the promises they've made and demand that they take action now. So what's next? What can we do as individuals to continue this fight for equality, justice, and change? We need to keep pushing forward. We need to keep voting, organizing, educating ourselves, listening to the ones who have been affected by racism. It all matters. Change doesn't happen from the top down. It happens from the ground up. We must challenge hate wherever we see it. We can't let hate go unchecked. It's up to us to call it out, to speak out against it, and to continue fighting for justice. And the fight doesn't stop here. We must keep this movement alive, not just in the streets, but in our hearts and in our communities. We must continue to strive for a world where racism has no place and where love truly has no room for hate. We've talked about the darkness, the struggle, and the challenges we've faced as a nation, but we've also talked about the progress, the victories, and the people who are fighting every single day for change. And now it's up to us. We've seen the way forward. We know that change is possible, and it starts with us. So let's get out there. Let's stand together and demand the future we deserve, a future where love has no room for hate. I want to say before I wrap up that for a long time, I have wanted to use my voice and my platform for good, for change. And I want to thank everyone who listens to these episodes. Whether it's just a couple people or a couple hundred, I really can't thank all of you enough. So until next time, Be the light, the love, and the future you want to see in this world. And I promise that I will stand beside each and every one of you, no matter the cost. I'm Kyle Fields. Good night, and God bless.
This episode is dedicated to every soul who has endured the weight of racism, to every voice that was silenced too soon, and to every heart still fighting for justice, equality, and truth. Special thanks to the brave survivors who continue to share their stories so the world may never forget. The historians, scholars, and journalists who've documented the truth with integrity and courage. The activists, both past and present, who have laid their lives on the line for change. The Black community, whose strength, resilience, and brilliance have shaped the soul of this nation, even when that nation has tried to deny it. And to every listener who chooses to lean in, unlearn, and stand up. Because silence is compliance, and love, real love, has no room for hate. This episode of the Survivors series was hosted by Kyle Fields, written and researched by Mary Rodriguez, and produced by One Love Media. All rights reserved. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe for future episodes. Until next time, stay safe and stay strong.